Well, it is party time for the U.S. women's national team. The World Cup champs celebrating their title with the ticker tape parade through the Canyon of Heroes in Manhattan. You see everything is getting going there. The U.S. women's national team came to life in the second half to beat the Netherlands 2-0 on a second half goals from Megan Rapinoe and Roe Lavelle. It's the fourth title for the United States. Also marks the first time the Americans won back-to-back trophies. We have Coach Jill Ellis there also celebrating. Coach Ellis, the first coach to win 2 World Cup titles. I'd like to also welcome in Roger Gonzalez, CBS Sports writer. You are in Virginia. Welcome, Roger.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So overall thoughts as you watch the women compete all the way through this World Cup?
Well, it was just an incredible run, and it's so impressive to see that, dominate in the group stage and then in the knockout stage, all the adversity that they had to face, all the tight games they had, having to hold on to 2-1 leads in those 3 matches leading up to the final. And then we saw in the final with a team that had always scored within the first 12 minutes of every game to be an hour in without a goal. It was, very nerve-wracking for the players and the fans. And, credit to them for coming through, and they've really set the standard for women's soccer throughout the world. It's crazy to think that in the history of World Cup on the men and women's side, there's the Brazil national team with 5 titles on the men's side, and the second team with the most titles is the USA women. So really an incredible run for them, and it's exciting to see all these people coming out in the streets to celebrate it.
And we just saw Roe Lavelle on the screen. She scored one of the goals in the finals. Were you concerned at all when they didn't get off to that hot start?
Well, not necessarily, just because of how well they had handled adversity. And, having been there before, been to a final, this was the Netherlands' second World Cup overall, the first one being in 2015. So, the U.S. always had the advantage. And Megan Rapinoe has said that when the U.S. is down 2-0 in the 80th minute, they still think they're going to win. So when it's an hour in and it's 0-0, I still think, obviously, their confidence has to be sky high. So not a surprise. They didn't, they limited the mistakes. They defended really well. There were some issues maybe defensively in the games leading up to it, but when it mattered most, they came up big, and it was quite the thing to see.
And they played in front of a sellout crowd of almost 58,000 fans. You see the thousands of folks that came out to celebrate them here in New York. Just your thoughts overall on how the United States backed this team, something that they haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the exposure that this team has received, and the people who are, into the sport more so now than 4 years ago. And, when you have success like this, it gets people excited. And it's cool to see now, even, you see men with jerseys, and on the back, it doesn't necessarily say Pulisic. You see some that have a Rapinoe, Carly Lloyd, Alex Morgan. So it's really cool to see the support that this team has had throughout really the world, and how they've inspired a lot of young people and young girls to continue playing and try to achieve their dreams just like they have. And it's exciting for the future, because this team is a mixture of veterans, of young talent. And Jill Ellis, what can you say about her? 2 World Cups, and she still hasn't lost a game. She's cemented herself as a legendary coach overall, not just on the women's side.
We're going to talk about Megan Rapinoe, who's on that float right there, but I just want to go back to Jill Ellis for a second. She's now only 4 wins away from becoming the winningest coach in the United States Women's World Cup history. So when you look at someone like Ellis, she's gone through some ups and downs. She's had so much victory, but there's been a lot of criticism with her as well. Do you think that she's in for the long haul, and will she be around, when they compete again?
Yeah, that's interesting, and you're exactly right. She's been criticized every single game for her decisions, whether it's not starting Lindsey Horan, whether it's tinkering with certain formations, and, some of this stems from, not doing too well at the 2016 Olympics. But, when you're 2 for 2 at the World Cup, it's really something, first of all, that's never been done by any manager of a women's national team. And, you would think, moving forward for her, it's kind of hard to kind of get a read on what she's going to want to do. There's so much young talent coming up that there's no reason to think why this team can't be a strong contender at the next World Cup. I don't have any indication that she wants to leave on a high note, right after this tournament. I think she'll be there for a bit, and all signs I think point to her staying on because of what she's been able to accomplish and how much she cares for this team and this country.
Let's brag a little about Rapinoe for a moment here. She won the Golden Boot as the tournament's top scorer, the Golden Ball as its top player. You saw her on the float rocking that purple hair. She was outspoken this entire World Cup celebration. Now, when you think about Rapinoe, what do you think that she brings to this sport?
Well, for her, it's so much more than just the game of soccer. I mean, off the field, she certainly isn't afraid to speak out as to, for what she believes in, whether it's equal pay or other things. And, I think she's someone who, you saw the free kick she scored against France in the quarterfinals, and that now signature celebration with her arms open. I think that's kind of her gold and her iconic moment from this World Cup. I mean, she was just so big for this team, scoring those goals in the knockout stage, and someone who, embodies what a captain is supposed to be, someone who steps up in the biggest of moments, someone who's vocal, who tries to help the younger players and teach them. And, she's really become, I think, the face of this team after we saw Carly Lloyd do the face 4 years ago. And for someone who's kind of towards the end of her career, it's hard to envision a better way to kind of, wrap up these final years of her playing career.
Megan Rapinoe, only the second player to start 3 Women's World Cup finals. When you look at what this team accomplished, what can you say as far as what they do for the sport of women's soccer?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, being the gold standard of the sport on the women's side, and just how much interest that, there's been in this tournament. We've seen the numbers of just, whether it's viewership, or jersey sales. I mean, it's really incredible to think, especially with how late of a start women's soccer has gotten, in the world overall and compared to the men's game. Just what this team has been able to do time and time again. And, for them to have 4 World Cup titles and no other team have more than 2, it's really just unbelievable to see how exactly they go about, whether it's the professionalism, how close they are on the field. You can see from how much fun they're having at the parade just how well they get along. They really have that family feeling, and I think there's a lot of different players on this team that really most Americans can relate to.
And the women's national team, their 4th World Cup title, 1991, 1999, 2015, 2019. They just showed Roe Lavelle up there once again. Now, apparently she dressed up like Mia Hamm back in high school. What kind of name has Lavelle made for herself?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I saw that. That was quite the cool image of her to, see where she kind of, who she dreamed of kind of, who she wanted to be like growing up and what she's been able to do. And, she's someone who, being one of the younger players on this team, but someone who Jill Ellis really trusts. I mean, she's really just come up big. That goal in the final to really put it away was one of the more spectacular goals of the entire tournament. And it's really interesting because she's, sometimes she makes an impact without even touching the ball. We saw the England game, when Kristen Press scored the opener. The ball went to Rose. She let it go between her legs, back behind to O'Hara for the assist. And it's just those little things. It's kind of incredible to see, how she understands the game, how she can make an impact in so many different ways. And, she's, for the biggest women's soccer clubs in the world, whether it's in the U.S. or in Europe, I have to think that so many of them are considering what they can do to try to get someone like her, because she's becoming a special talent, and she could very well be the face of this team heading into the next World Cup.
Yeah, you mentioned that Megan Rapinoe is, she has been around for a long time. She is elderly on the team, if you can say that. So do you think that Lavelle is the future?
Yeah, I certainly do, just because of her, just the creativity that she has. Every team needs someone who can be that kind of engine in the middle of the field, and I think she could be that. And, I still think a lot of these players on this team will be a part, moving forward, potentially into the next World Cup. Even Alex Morgan, she just turned 30, but she'd be 34 at the next World Cup, and it's still an age in which she could certainly produce. And, defensively as well, there's some young pieces there. Dahlkamp or someone who performed really well, who would certainly be a starter at the next World Cup. But, yeah, Rose is the player I'm looking at as, to kind of carry the team forward. And even, below her and some of the youth national teams, there's a lot of talent coming up, and I think the future right now is really as bright as ever.
Where were you when you were watching the final on Sunday?
Yeah, I was here. I was, here at my house, busy day for us, and being able to see it's really interesting to see what this game has meant internationally too. The respect that I've seen from friends of mine who are journalists in Europe, and having maybe being in a country that has played the U.S. in the World Cup, people are blown away by what this team has done, and I'm excited to see where this team goes from here.
Yeah, after the win versus the Netherlands, the World Cup team is now 44-6 all-time in World Cup play, outscoring opponents 138 in 50 games. What does that say about this United States team?
I mean, it's just dominant. It's you think about the great run that the Brazilian men have had on their side, years ago. But I think we're kind of seeing that here. For the U.S. to, have to go from 1999 and wait till 2015 to get a title, it was, maybe a bit of a drought, even though the tournaments were played every 4 years. But for them to come back like they've done, I mean, I just think this is a team that has so many pieces to work with that can step up in the biggest of moments. And despite the doubts that there were, in goal with Lifinair and not having Hope Solo anymore, it just seems like all those questions that maybe everyone had entering the tournament, they were all answered. I mean, there's really nothing you can say against really any doubt that this team had because of what they've been able to do. And, for them to have the 4th star on their crest and see the emotion that this brings to them and their families and the fans, I can't imagine, kind of a more spectacular moment than what we're seeing now. And the celebration in New York City is certainly something that they deserve. And I'm excited to see what happens here at this parade. I'm expecting Megan Rapinoe to certainly produce some viral moments.
Absolutely. We just saw Julie Ertz on the screen, Zach Ertz's wife. Would you say they are the most athletic, successful couple that's out there in the world of sports?
They're really incredible. I saw Julie Ertz was on Good Morning Football this morning talking about, that relationship with her husband and how they support each other. And, that trophy case that they have at home with him winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles, her 2 World Cups. And, they're a couple that does so much more than just produce on the field. They have a foundation where they're able to help kids, whether it's education or to get into sports. And I think they are certainly the gold standard of sports couples right now in the U.S.
The U.S. women's national team had 9 different goal scorers at the tournament. So what does that say about the versatility and depth that this team had?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, when you look at this U.S. bench, whether it's, Christine Press or Mallory Pugh, those are 2 players that could start for most other teams at the World Cup. So when you see how these goals were spread around and obviously scoring 13 in the opener, there's just so many weapons there. It's really, you look at Jill Ellis and we can talk about the criticism that she's received, but for her to be able to plug in so many other players, have confidence in what they're able to accomplish, and to have that many different players score goals, it just shows that any player on this team can step up at any moment. And because of their creativity with the ball, so many different players get chances to score, especially from midfield. We saw Sam Lewis score, Julie Ertz as well, Roe Lavelle, which we talked about. To have midfielders that can score as well, that's not a luxury that a lot of teams have.
Now, when you were watching this from start to finish and watching their whole journey through the World Cup, everyone was very concerned about the France matchup. Did you have concerns there, and how impressed are you with what they've accomplished over their journey?
Yeah, I mean, I was maybe more concerned about a potential semifinal against England just because England is so organized. But when you talk about France, a team that, hasn't had a lot of success at World Cups, but one team, that people think that maybe are in their golden age and the window is open to win a World Cup title. And having to play them, at their home certainly makes the task even more difficult. And part of that has been a hot start to the U.S. 12 minutes in against France. We're still 5 minutes in through the Rapinoe free kick, and early against England. That's what the U.S. was able to do most of the tournament, kind of set that tone early and have confidence and control of the game. And that's what stands out for me, just kind of those quick starts and the determination from really the opening whistle to strike first like that puts them in really comfortable situations. And then to not have that in the final and to come through like they did, I think it just says a lot about the character of the team.
Not to go back to Megan Rapinoe again, but she is the superstar here. And she really did use this time to speak her mind and use it as a platform for women's rights and equality in the sport. Do you think that she, in the long run, will have accomplished anything over this run?
Yeah, I mean, I think, she's someone that I think a lot of people can look up to in the sense of, her having this massive platform and to speak strongly about what she believes in and in equal pay for the women's national team, and not just related to soccer, just overall. I think that's certainly admirable from her to try to do what she can to make an impact. And that's how it is for a lot of these players, off the field, trying to do more than just, be known for being soccer players. They want to be able to make an impact in their communities and change things. And, I think she's the one who's leading the charge. We've seen all the TV appearances she's made since the end of the final. And, someone who's not, not afraid to speak what she believes in. And I think that's something that certainly resonated with a lot of people.
And do you expect to see any movement when it comes to what she was preaching?
Well, it's complicated. Anything that involves the legal system and lawsuits, it's certainly not fixed quickly. But I think she can point to these results. I mean, she talks the talk, she walks the walk for them to come through like they did and to win another World Cup. And we've seen the jersey sales and the economic impact that this has made for U.S. soccer and the sport overall. I think they've certainly done more than enough to state their case and have the evidence to back up, to kind of push for what they want moving forward. But I don't think it's anything that's going to be resolved here soon. I think it's going to kind of be drawn out for a while, but I think they're going about it the right way.
Absolutely. Now, we know it's 4 years away, but do you see the dynasty continuing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They'll enter the World Cup, I think, as the favorite, certainly. There's, like I said before, about the young talent coming up. If those are players who continue to progress, and you've got Roe Lavelle and Mallory Pugh leading this team moving forward. I mean, certainly 4 years away is quite a while, but, they're going to be the favorites, leading up to it, and, there's no reason to think why they can't add, the fifth star to the jersey.
Roger Gonzalez, thank you so much for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to continuing watching this parade as it rolls down the streets in New York, the ticker tape parade, as they're going through the Canyon of Heroes in Manhattan. Roger, thank you so much. We've got plenty more coming up on CBS Sports HQ. I know that Cannell and Bell is up next, and they will be discussing the parade, plus they have other guests as well to talk about what happened last night in the All-Star game. And also Brad Botkin will be joining Tommy Tran, who will be filling in as host for Cannell and Bell, to discuss some of the new rules coming out in the NBA. Thank you for sharing in on the World Cup parade with us. Much more coming up on CBS Sports HQ.